First place it goes is to the mailing room. And I'm going to ask Greg to tell us what happens from there, because he's been there.
Well, once the mail comes into the prison, it goes to the mail room. And how long it takes to get out of the mail room is, kind of depending on the volume of mail that the prison gets, the number of staffers that they put in there, even the time of year, because, sometimes around so-called holidays in December and whatnot, they will get very backed up. Generally, if the mailroom is up to staff and doing the work that they're supposed to be doing, you should get it, within a couple days. But there have been times when I've had mail held for weeks, 2-3 weeks, a month. The other issue that may come into play is there's some censorship that occurs in regards to certain publications. It's basically pretty arbitrary who decides what needs to be sent to what's called a publication review committee. Some major type of issues or themes that I think get singled out are certain political issues, things that they consider racist, so-called pornographic things generally. But I think probably the main cause of concern that I could see coming from Books to Prisoners would be perhaps political issues. So once it goes through the mail room and actually gets, the cell number of the inmate, it will go out. And depending on what prison you're in, they bring mail at different times. But mail time is always, guys very much want to get mail, and many people don't get anything, and many days you might not get anything. You might not get anything for weeks, months, years perhaps. So especially if, you're striving to educate yourself or even just have some kind of human contact to just get that book, when the officer comes by with the mail and, hey, you got something. And especially, if you've sent a request to the Books to Prisoners and then you get what you were looking for, or even if it's not something you're looking for, if you're in a cell all day, you've got to appreciate, just having the opportunity to read. And so some other issues probably are, they've started a program in the state of Illinois in the last, decade now probably, it seems kind of recently to me perhaps, but they brought in what are called property boxes. Now, prior to that, you were allowed to keep pretty much, not unlimited property, but whatever basically you could have in your cell, unless they just wanted to mess with you or something and come in and mess with your stuff and take your stuff. So they instituted this property box where in general population, you would have 2 property boxes. There's one large one that's approximately, maybe this big. I don't know how long.
About 3 by 4?
Somewhere in that sense, and maybe a foot high. And then there's a smaller one, which is called a legal correspondence box, which is about 1.5 feet by a foot and maybe a foot high. And in segregation, depending where you're at, you may have no box, and then you'll have a limitation on like 25 total books, magazines, newspaper. I believe that was the limit when I was in Pontiac. Or you may have everything that you have in segregation has to fit in your legal box, which, needless to say, contains a very limited amount of space.
Greg, before you were in segregation, are you allowed to trade books or share them?
That's the technicality. You can. There's actually technically a disciplinary policy within the Illinois Department of Correction that's specifically called trading and trafficking, which if they want to apply it broadly or arbitrarily, as is the case, if I gave you this pen, I could be written up and receive loss of good time, segregation, et cetera, if they want to enforce that. So it's pretty arbitrary, but yes, you can get in trouble for even sharing a book. And even in Pontiac, there have been times when thankfully I had access to other people who were sending me reading material in addition to the great Books to Prisoners people. So I would have a lot of reading material, and I've had books taken from me because they said, oh, you have too many books, we're going to take your books. And As far as sharing, in segregation, you can't get to other inmates. So the only way that you can pass stuff is sending lines under doors and over galleries. But people pass, books get out. Yes, it's very important that books get in.
Before we get ready to leave, could we go ahead and talk about the Books to Prisoners website really quick? And
There's one more thing. I want to hear about new volunteers from Brian.
Oh, okay.
Just quickly.
Oh, okay. Really quick. The new volunteer experience at Books of Prisoners is great. I initially had a lot of anxiety because the IMC building is new and confusing, and I don't know where to go. But all it took was one email to the Books of Prisoners staff, and that email address you can find on the Books of Prisoners website. And they told me exactly how I could get in. It's actually a door on the north side of the building, and once I found that door, they couldn't keep me away. But what you will find once you go to that door and go into the room is a friendly, experienced key staff person who will first give you a tour of the books, show you how to answer letters, and give you an overview of the entire process. And once you get started doing that, you'll have lots of help from everybody in the room. And hopefully it's a great experience for you. So we probably don't have time for much more, but give it a shot.
Okay, thanks a lot, Brian. In closing, I want to hit the book sale one more time. If Jason could show the leaflet that we have for Pages for Pennies coming up October 17 through 19. That is a Friday, Saturday, and Sunday until early afternoon. And I want to remind you of the mission statement of UC Books to Prisoners. It is to provide books to inmates in Illinois by recycling donated books, to facilitate a quality volunteer experience. And you've been hearing today from a whole bunch of volunteers, and we're going to review who they are before we say goodbye, to offer a venue for inmates to tell their own stories, and that is in a zine, which we don't have time to talk about, but we put out irregularly, and to educate ourselves and our community about prisons, which we've been doing today. I am Barbara Kessel, a volunteer at UC Books to Prisoners.
I'm Gregory Koger, a former prisoner, and thank you. Please donate and volunteer.
I'm Brian Dugan. I'm a community member and a volunteer.
Deb Sanderson, if you don't have money, you have time, and we'd love to get your time as a volunteer.
Brian Larson, community member and law student now. And yes, any time that you can give is wonderful for us, just because of the amount of volume of letters that we get. It can always use another hand to help out.
Thank you very much. You've been listening to an hour-long show for the UC Books to Prisoners Volunteer Project. Come to the book sale.
Or visit us online at www.books2prisoners.org.
Thank you.